The delicate petals he arranged with practiced precision had replaced the delicate cardiac tissue he'd once sutured with life-saving skill, but Dr. Michael Mike Thompson still approached every flower arrangement with the same meticulous attention to detail that had kept thousands of hearts beating. Like 69, sat in the fifth row of the Tonight Show studio, his surgeon's hands unconsciously moving in precise cutting motions, while his trained eyes automatically assessed the health and vitality of every person he could observe in the audience. The small Bloom and Deliver 25 years service patch on his faded denim shirt caught the studio lights as he adjusted his position with the controlled movements of someone who had spent decades working in situations where steady hands meant the difference between life and death. To the hundreds of customers who had received flower deliveries from Mike over 2.5 decades, he was just another friendly delivery driver who somehow knew exactly how to keep flowers fresh and had an unusual ability to comfort people during difficult times. What they didn't know was that their flowers were being delivered by a man who had performed over 3,000 heart surgeries and pioneered techniques that were still saving lives around the world. What Mike didn't know was that his story had been quietly circulating among medical professionals after a former colleague had recognized him in a local news feature about essential workers during the pandemic that showed him delivering sympathy flowers to grieving families. The photo had caught the attention of cardiac surgeons who remembered Dr. Michael Thompson as one of the most skilled and innovative heart surgeons of the 1980 SN 1990S. Mike's story had begun with a calling to heal that had driven him through the grueling demands of medical school and surgical residency. Born in rural Iowa to parents who ran a small farm, Mike had shown an early fascination with how living systems worked, spending his childhood studying the anatomy of farm animals and dreaming of becoming a doctor who could fix what was broken in the human body. After graduating from Johns Hopkins Medical School in 1978, Mike had specialized in cardiothoracic surgery. Drawn to the heart as the most essential and challenging organ to repair, his training had been among the most demanding in medicine. Years of 100-hour work weeks, learning to operate on the organ that couldn't stop beating while he worked on it, developing the hand-eye coordination and decision-making skills that meant patients would either go home to their families or never wake up. Over 20 years, Dr. Michael Thompson had become one of the most respected cardiac surgeons on the East Coast. He'd performed groundbreaking procedures on premature babies whose hearts were smaller than walnuts, saved middle-aged parents who'd suffered massive heart attacks, and given elderly patients the gift of years with their grandchildren through complex valve replacements and bypass surgeries. His success rate had been among the highest in the field, and his innovations in minimally invasive cardiac procedures had been adopted by surgeons worldwide. But the constant pressure of holding human lives in his hands, the accumulation of inevitable losses despite his best efforts, and the toll of decades spent in operating rooms had gradually worn away at Mike's emotional reserves. The breaking point had come in 1999 when he'd lost 3 patients in a single week, not due to surgical error, but because their conditions had been too advanced for any intervention to save them. The weight of those families' grief, combined with 20 years of carrying life or death responsibility, had led Mike to make a decision that shocked the medical community. The flower delivery job had started as temporary work while Mike figured out what retired cardiac surgeons do it themselves. But 25 years later, he discovered unexpected peace in bringing beauty and comfort to people during both joyful and sorrowful occasions. He'd found that delivering flowers allowed him to still help people through difficult times, but without the crushing weight of being responsible for their survival. The Tonight Show tickets had been a surprise retirement gift from the flower shop's owner, who had watched Mike work with exceptional care and compassion for 25 years and wanted to honor the man who had somehow made every delivery feel like a healing experience for the recipients. It was a Wednesday night taping in June, and Jimmy was in good spirits after interviewing a medical drama star about her new hospital show. During his commercial break interaction with the audience, his attention was drawn to Mike by his perfect posture and the way he moved his hands with the precision of someone trained in delicate manual work. "Sir, you have incredibly steady hands. Are you in a profession that requires precision?" Mike straightened with the automatic response of someone who had spent decades being evaluated on technical performance. Flower delivery, sir. I deliver arrangements for Bloom and Deliver here in the city. Been doing it 25 years, retiring next week. A warm murmur went through the nearby audience members. Flower delivery was work that brought beauty to people's lives, and 25 years of reliable service deserved recognition. 25 years of flower delivery, you must have brought joy to thousands of people during their most important moments. Mike's face lit up with genuine satisfaction in his work. Yes, sir, flowers are for all occasions: births, graduations, anniversaries, sympathy arrangements. You learn that flowers aren't just decoration, they're how people express feelings they can't put into words. You talk about it almost like medicine, very thoughtful about the healing power of what you do. Well, good care always involves understanding what people need during difficult times. Whether you're delivering flowers or providing other kinds of care, the goal is always to help people feel better. Jimmy noticed something in Mike's language, a sophisticated understanding of healing and patient care that went beyond typical flower delivery experience. Mike, have you always worked in flower delivery? You seem to understand care and healing on a deeper level. Mike paused, as if deciding how much of his background to reveal. Actually, I used to work in medicine before I started delivering flowers. Different kind of helping people, but similar goal of providing care when they need it most. The mention of medical background caught the audience's attention, but something in Mike's careful phrasing suggested more than typical healthcare experience. What did you do in medicine? I was a surgeon, cardiac surgery specifically, heart operations, valve repairs, bypass procedures, 20 years of operating room work before I decided to find a different way to help people. The casual way he mentioned cardiac surgery caused a stunned silence in the studio. Heart surgeons were among the most elite medical specialists in the world. Jimmy's curiosity was immediately piqued. This wasn't just a career change story. This was someone who had gone from performing life-saving surgery to delivering flowers. Jimmy made a decision that would change everything. My cardiac surgery is one of the most demanding specialties in medicine. Would you mind coming down here and telling us about that career? Mike looked uncertain. Oh, I don't think people want to hear about old medical stories. That was a very different life. Trust me, people definitely want to hear about that level of medical service. Come on down. As Mike made his way to the stage with the controlled movement of someone who had once moved through operating rooms where every step mattered, his bearing transformed completely. The confident presence of someone who had once held human hearts in his hands and made them beat again. When he reached the stage, Jimmy guided him to a comfortable chair. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy announced, this is Dr. Michael Thompson. For 25 years, he's been delivering flowers throughout New York, but before that, he spent 20 years as a cardiac surgeon, saving lives through heart operations. Mike, tell us about your surgical career. Mike settled into the chair, and when he spoke about surgery, his voice took on the authority and precision of someone who had mastered one of medicine's most complex specialties. Cardiac surgery is about repairing the most essential organ in the human body while it's still functioning. You're operating on a heart that has to keep beating to keep the patient alive. So every movement must be precise. Every decision must be correct. Every suture must be perfect. The audience was completely quiet, understanding they were hearing about life or death medical procedures. What kinds of operations did you perform? Mike's eyes reflected the intensity of his surgical years, everything from emergency bypass surgery for heart attack victims to complex valve repairs for children born with cardiac defects, coronary artery bypass, valve replacements, septal defect repairs, transplant preparations. Each surgery was unique. Each patient had different needs. How many heart surgeries did you perform? Over 3,000 successful procedures during my 20-year career. Premature babies weighing 2 pounds, elderly patients in their 80s, middle-aged parents who needed to get back to their families. Every surgery was someone's life, someone's future. Jimmy reached behind his chair and pulled out a tablet loaded with medical journals and surgical databases. Mike, we did some research before tonight's show. He showed Mike archived medical articles and surgical papers. According to medical journals, Dr. Michael Thompson published groundbreaking research on minimally invasive cardiac procedures and had one of the highest success rates in cardiac surgery. Mike looked surprised. You found my surgical publications? We did. Listen to this from a 1995 New England Journal of Medicine article. Dr. Thompson's innovative approach to minimally invasive valve repair has revolutionized cardiac surgery, reducing patient recovery time by 60% while maintaining superior outcomes. The studio fell completely silent. The audience was processing that they were meeting someone whose medical innovations had saved thousands of lives. Mike, you were a pioneering surgeon. Why did you leave cardiac surgery? Mike's expression grew more reflective, touching on the emotional toll that few people understood. 20 years of holding people's lives in your hands takes a psychological toll that's hard to drive. When you save someone, their family celebrates you as a hero. When you lose someone, despite your best efforts, you carry that weight forever. So you retired from surgery to deliver flowers? I needed to find a way to still help people through difficult times, but without the life or death pressure. Flowers allow me to bring comfort during grief, joy during celebration, beauty during ordinary days. It's healing work, just different kind of healing. Jimmy leaned forward. But you never stopped being a doctor, did you? Mike smiled for the first time since taking the stage. You can't unlearn how to care for people. During flower deliveries, I notice when someone's breathing seems labored, when someone mentions chest pain, when someone needs medical attention. I've called 911 more than once during deliveries when I recognized cardiac emergency symptoms. Jimmy continued reading from the tablet. Mike, we found something else. Several of your former patients have been trying to locate you to thank you for saving their lives. My former patients want to find me? Listen to this from Jennifer Walsh, whose infant daughter you operated on in 1987. Dr. Thompson saved my baby's life with a valve repair when she was 6 months old. She's now 37 with children of her own. I've wanted to thank him for 37 years for giving me my daughter's life. Mike's eyes filled with tears. Baby Walsh, she survived? She has children? She did, and she credits you with making her family possible. There's more from Robert Martinez, whose emergency bypass you performed in 1994. Dr. Thompson operated on me after a massive heart attack. I've had 28 more years with my family because of his skill. He's a true hero. Jimmy stood and addressed the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this man spent 20 years saving lives through cardiac surgery, then spent 25 years bringing beauty and comfort to people through flower delivery. He turned back to Mike. The medical community wants to honor you. The American College of Cardiology wants to give you their Lifetime Achievement Award, and several medical schools want you to teach surgical students about the compassionate side of medicine. Mike's eyes filled with tears. They want to honor my surgical career? I do. And Mike, there's something else. Your surgical innovations are still being used to save lives. Surgeons around the world are performing procedures you pioneered. Jimmy had one more surprise. We have someone here who wanted to meet you. From backstage, Dr. Sarah Chen, currently one of the nation's leading cardiac surgeons, appeared in her hospital scrubs carrying a stethoscope. Dr. Thompson, Dr. Chen said, approaching with obvious reverence, I've been studying your surgical techniques since medical school. Your innovations in minimally invasive procedures have saved thousands of lives. You're a legend in cardiac surgery. Mike was openly crying now, overwhelmed by recognition from the medical community he'd left decades ago. You know my surgical work. Every cardiac surgeon does. Your techniques are still taught in medical schools. Your success rates are still the standard other surgeons strive to achieve. You represent the highest ideals of surgical medicine. Jimmy sat back down beside Mike. Mike, you've spent 25 years thinking your surgical career was in the past, but what you really did was continue healing people in a different way, while your medical innovations continued saving lives around the world. As they helped Mike back to his seat, he stopped and looked out at the audience one more time. Thank you for honoring my work, but I want people to know healing comes in many forms. Whether you're performing surgery or delivering flowers, the goal is always to help people feel better, to bring hope during difficult times, to remind people that someone cares. The episode that aired became one of the most moving Tonight Show segments ever, sparking conversations about medical careers and the different ways people can serve their communities. Mike's story inspired several medical organizations to create programs for retired physicians who wanted to continue serving their communities in non medical capacities, recognizing that the caring instincts that made great doctors never retire. Mike spent his retirement occasionally consulting on cardiac cases and teaching medical students about the human side of surgery, while continuing to deliver flowers part time, discovering that leaving cardiac surgery hadn't ended his healing mission. It had simply found a gentler way to touch people's lives. At 71, Mike still moves with a surgeon's precision, still believes that every person deserves care and comfort during difficult times, and still carries his medical diploma alongside his flower delivery permit, a reminder that true healers never stop serving. They just find new ways to mend what's broken in the human experience, because sometimes the most important operations happen not in operating rooms, but in ordinary moments when someone who understands healing brings beauty and hope to people who need reminding that life, like flowers, has the power to bloom again, even after the darkest seasons.